So we're back for another week of Oh Ship. I'm Freddie Laker.
And I'm Ben Way.
And we're here to give you another complete ship show of an episode.
Oh Ship.
So this week we're going to end up talking about raising money. I've bootstrapped a bunch of businesses. I've raised some money through the kind of traditional angel and VC stage, and I've worked with some private equity firms, but I probably don't have half the experience that Ben does in terms of raising money.
It seems like I spend my whole life raising money for early stage startups. Literally, like, that is the first question most entrepreneurs ask me when they get hold of me. They're like, oh yeah, we've got this great idea, brilliant, and we'd love to get you involved, and all we need is some money.
Yeah. And you just have to be in the middle of an ICO to boot.
Yes, indeed. But it's quite fascinating, and what I would say is that, you know, there are a lot more options these days than there were when I started.
I have a problem, I have to be honest. The wind is...
You do have a few problems.
I do. The wind is just kind of gently tossing your hair, and I see in the reflection of your sunglasses my imaginary hair also.
It's not really as floating as well as mine.
No, this is bringing me back to our first episode.
Okay, we're digressing.
Gently tousled hair in the wind.
Okay.
I'm going to go back to the very insightful things you were saying about raising money.
Thank you.
Go.
Thank you. So, what about you? What's your preferred method of raising capital? Do you prefer
I'm
bootstrapping?
sorry, I caught myself in your sunglasses.
Oh my
again.
God, really? What's your problem? Seriously.
I'm gonna be honest, I kind of hate raising money.
Yeah,
I've done it a couple of times, and actually that's not true. I've bootstrapped a couple of times, and I've helped other people raise money when I've only personally raised money one time, and I found it to be kind of a soul-sucking experience.
It is.
And,
it is.
And I'm
imagine doing that every day. That's my life.
It's hard. I enjoy chatting with people, and I'm a capable business person, I'd like to believe, but it's something about asking for money all the time that kind of wears on me, and I find that it's kind of like getting a bank loan a lot.
It's a lot of responsibility, especially like at the friends and family stage, where you're asking people that you know to step up and put in capital. And my recommendation to anybody who's thinking of investing in an early stage startup is, as long as you can go into the middle of your garden, put that 25,000, whatever you're investing, pour petrol over it and light it, set a light. If you're happy to do that, then you should invest that money in the startup.
I agree.
But if it's any money you can't afford to lose, then don't do it, because like I said on the other show, 95% of businesses fail. I mean, that's not because of any particular reason, and this is another important point, is that a successful business, I actually believe, is like only about 40% skill. I think 30% of it's luck and 30% of it's timing. But if you're not on the right time at the right skill set, I mean, the number of businesses, I came up with Tinder 10 years before Tinder.
Mm-hmm.
I came up with Uber 10 years before Uber. But if you're not in at the right time, you're screwed.
If an investor isn't willing, or an entrepreneur isn't willing to raise money from their closest inner circle, assuming they've got the means to do so, do you think that is wise, or do you think they're just not that confident in their idea?
Actually, I stay away from raising from friends and family. I've never asked my family for money.
I'm very worried about asking friends for money.
The only time I've ever asked, or I've never asked friends to put in money. If a friend offers, I'll let them put it in, but I will never ask.
You also don't want to have that chat where then you end up having this hit company, and your friends are like, yeah, you let Joe Blow down the street put in a bunch of money. You didn't even mention it to me.
You're screwed if you do, and you're screwed if you don't.
Yeah. So,
but that's a better problem to have than losing people's money.
Maybe with your friends.
No, I tell you.
I've got some friends who would kill me if I left them out of a good opportunity.
The question I get a lot from early stage entrepreneurs is how should I raise money? Because you've got your friends and family, you've got venture, you've got crowdfunding, you've got equity crowdfunding, you've got now ICOs that are coming out, and there's no easy answer for that, because each business is its own mix of components that are particularly optimized for a certain type of funding. And the real challenge is that it's still very hard to raise capital, especially if you're a first-time entrepreneur. I have a project now where we've been to almost 100 VCs, right? And we get very, very close, and then it's no cigar. But that is not an unusual situation to be in, and people also forget it only takes one to say yes.
How do you think they find these investors? Do you think you just build the list and start emailing them, put them up on LinkedIn?
Hard.
Do you think you need a third party to kind of help you that's got relationships?
Yeah, we do that for a lot of startups. We've done that many times for our internal startups as raised capital, and it is a process. What I would say is that crowdfunding is very good, though it's the air's gone out of the market since ICOs have come in, but I suspect that will rebalance. I wouldn't recommend doing an ICO unless your product is crypto related. And to be quite frank with you, it's not easy money anymore. It is, it is actually harder now, I would say, to do an ICO than it is to do crowdfunding or raise equity, because what's happened is, like everything, is when you have that big upturn and the downturn happens, now there is a lot less capital chasing a lot more deals, and so it's really meant that the quality of the deals have to go up considerably,
which is probably a good thing.
Which is a good thing, but it also restricts entrepreneurs from raising capital, and unfortunately there will be some great ideas out there that don't get funded because of that, and that is a shame. Venture funding, if you're raising under $1 million, is very hard. There aren't that many real seed startup venture funds that really do take risks. I mean, they do invest, but they don't, they tend to take risks on entrepreneurs that they know, or, it's very rare that a new entrepreneur can come in to a venture fund unless they've got something amazing and raise capital.
On the kind of opposite end of the spectrum, I've spent the last 2.5 years really working with private equity firms who've been more focused on, let's say, these companies that sometimes might be 20, 30 years old. They're very established. They've, in many cases, have hundreds to, a couple hundred to 500 million in revenue, at least from what I've been dealing with. And they maybe were great businesses, or still are great businesses, but maybe are under incredible pressure from digital transformation, or let's say a shift, they're retail companies, a shift to online sales. And so they're going through these big periods of disruption. And I think watching the private equity firms, how they value them, is so much different than when I experienced, let's say, when I was helping with early stage companies. Because there is so much significant revenue there already, and actually the companies in some cases may be in decline, and they may have been in decline for multiple years. But the investors are now looking at them and going, well, hey, I understand that this is at its core a great business and a great product, but if I shift this lever, or in many cases, may I merge them with this and
or
this
break
and
them
this,
apart.
or break them apart. I've also seen that happen a couple times now. They can do something more interesting with them and make them into tighter businesses. And just on a personal level, it's been really interesting.
Do you ever do anything in retail?
I do a lot of stuff in retail.
So that's going to be carnage over the next decade, 2 decades. That's Armageddon.
Almost everything I've done in the last 2.5 years has been retail based, actually, and it is incredibly challenged environment, and but also ripe for opportunity.
So would you buy Sears?
I don't know about those guys. they may be a bit too flawed. I think the really good ones are the ones where it's a great brand and people are like, oh, I like that product, and they're just
like Toys R Us.
I think that could have been turned into.
I'm surprised that they didn't manage to keep that.
I think they were just too laden with debt, and no one could figure out how to do it. And you know what? I wouldn't be surprised if someone came and bought the name or something.
Let's see how much it will cost us.
Exactly. Honestly, though, I think about my
actually be quite. If you can pick it up for 10 grand.
No, I don't know about that. Someone's going to buy that thing. The name alone is probably worth 50 million, and then maybe more. Who knows?